my fellow randoms. I'm trying to make every intro a little bit different, so, give me some credit here. My name is Kev Duffy, and welcome to this, our 14th episode of What's Your Random podcast on our quest to 20 in 2020. Are we going to do it? It is time to make your place your bets, because we're cutting it down to the wire, but I do have some tricks up my sleeve, just not quite sure if I have 20 of them. We're going to cut it close, but I think we might just squeak it out. This is What's Your Random podcast, where I discover and celebrate individual and independent creativity from the inception of an idea to the process of bringing it to life. Essentially, where do you get ideas? And then how do you go about bringing them to fruition? The process of making an idea into something tangible to share with other people, whether it be a film project, a comic project, a board game, a product design, story writing, anything. There's so many creative fields out there: photography, illustration. I want to learn about them all, and I hope you do too, because that is certainly my quest here at What's Your Random. So that's a longer introduction than usual, but for any newcomers, that's what we're all about here. And a quick commercial from our sponsors. You're our sponsors. You make the show possible. You help the show grow. So if you are into it and you enjoy it and want to be alerted whenever a new episode comes out, be sure to subscribe on all of your podcast catchers. Apple Podcasts. I always want to say iTunes, but I know it's not. It's Apple Podcasts now. We're on Spotify. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can listen to us, What's Your Random? And that includes and extends to watching video episodes on YouTube. So subscribe there as well. Like I said, the show is brought to you by you, and you are the ones who are going to help us grow this into something really meaningful. Well, it's already meaningful, but you're going to help us grow it into something that hopefully reaches more ears of the people who would benefit from listening to my guests. So subscribe, and then if you can, give us a rating and share, because that sort of broadcasting is the net we need to catch your friends who might be inspired by one or a few of my guests. And we appreciate your help in spreading the word. So thank you in advance if you actually end up doing that. After the episode, as always, I will hang on a little bit longer for a quick debriefing, essentially talking about key takeaways I got from the episode, meaningful moments, meaningful themes and topics, as well as areas where I think I could improve the podcast and or my performance. And a lot of times, I'll be honest, those two things go hand in hand. So let's see how I do this episode. That's enough of kind of the advertising. Without further ado, joining me on What's Your Random is Edie Deffebach. She is a filmmaker, and she has worn many hats over the course of her career thus far. And she most recently successfully kickstarted a project that she wrote, produced, and acted in, and that project is called The Queue. It's a short film that was recently funded on Kickstarter and should be released in the first quarter of 2021. It's a dystopian social commentary type film, and speaking with Edie, I got the sense of the many layers that went into the themes and storytelling and in the filming of this short. Social issues and crafting them into a story, social issues and using filmmaking as a release and a way of expressing and thinking about current contemporary issues. And most interesting for me is Edie wrote and filmed this during lockdown, so it is inspired by the most contemporary of events, which is, the current global climate around the pandemic. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Edie Deffebach as much as I did. Enjoy the random. So welcome to What's Your Random? My guest today is Edie Deffebach, and she is a filmmaker wearing a lot of hats from what I gather in looking at her profile on the internet and her current project, The Queue, where she is a writer, producer, and actress. And maybe you wear some other hats that we'll investigate over the course of our conversation today. So welcome to the podcast, Edie.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So why don't we just start off by talking about your current project that was successfully funded on Kickstarter about a month ago. I think the Kickstarter ended.
Yeah, so it was a month ago that the Kickstarter ended. That was a campaign for the post-production work, actually. So thank you. It was really great to have that completed because funding's always the most stressful bit of filmmaking. But the queue, we filmed over 3 days in August of this year. And kind of like everybody navigating what the new COVID restrictions are and, writing up a COVID policy. And you're like, okay. But managed to do that successfully and safely, which was kind of a boost for everybody because it was like everybody who worked on the film, it was kind of their first project that they had gotten into since the pandemic hit. So I think everyone was really itching to get back to work. And we were all just like, thank God we're back on set. So that was really, really, really great project to do. And as you said, I was the writer and producer. And also acted in it. I'm an actress kind of by training, but had always loved writing and write scripts and short stories and just little bits and notes and thoughts and stuff. So very much feel like a writer as well. Producing, that was kind of my first major foray into producing. I had done a bit where I took a show to the Edinburgh Fringe a few years back. So naturally, kind of with a small crew, you do a lot of production prep as well. But this kind of, blew that experience out of the water. But I really enjoyed producing as well. I think as an actress, all actors should try their hand at producing, I think, just because you're not given any power at all in your career as an actor. And so it was really nice to, a bit Machiavellian of me, but it's really nice to actually sit and have a bit of power and kind of create something really from start to finish. So that was a really wonderful experience for me. And the queue is now on its way to completion. Should be done end of December, but we'll give people a little bit of leeway over the holidays for deadlines. But aiming to have it complete by then.
Very good. And I wonder over the course of working as the producer, if you also, from the flip side, now as an actress have a deeper understanding or respect or appreciation, or maybe I'm putting some words in your mouth.
Oh my God, no, yeah.
Yeah, from the other direction, how do you feel, how do you think it will affect your work as an actress on future productions when you're not the producer, if at all?
It's a really good question. I think from just how I will approach a bit of work as an actor, I think my methodologies won't be that impacted, but I think I will definitely have a better appreciation into just the logistics that go on to actually kind of get something to the point of shoot, of principal filming. Because I guess I think as an actor, you're kind of brought in in the casting, and then sometimes you progress, sometimes you don't, but then you're mainly just like plopped in when most of the pre-production is complete. So yeah, I definitely didn't appreciate all of the work that goes into getting something ready to actually shoot. So, but in terms of maybe I'll be more diligent about getting my forms in on time, information requests and stuff. But I think, yeah, methodologies as an actor, it's that probably won't change too much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
And how about moving forward? So you plan to release this film in early 2021?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the film is it's a two-hander basically, and it's a dystopian thriller, and it's a man and a woman who kind of by bad luck, ill fate, they meet while waiting in a queue, in this kind of dystopian, slightly fascist kind of world. And they team up to help the man find something that is, seems to be quite rare, difficult to get, but he's absolutely desperate for it. And so the woman, who's kind of a bit of an enigma, but the guy is so desperate, so, and she knows the area better than him, so they team up to go and find this item, and then all hell breaks loose basically. But it's an examination, I think. The actual concept, the cue, the title, which is line. I don't know if you have American audiences who might not know what like a queue is,
it's very well possible.
Yeah. So a queue is just like a line. So they're waiting in line. And I don't know about you guys, but we, during the lockdown, or just going to go for a shop, because of social distancing, you just like waited in lines, and that was like a real big part of lockdown for me here. And just mad that you can go into a shop normally and you don't think about it, and then when you have to stand and wait, and everyone's masked up and everyone's ransacking for toilet paper or whatever, frozen pizza, and it did it kind of evoked this weird dystopian reality. And then what kind of interaction could you have with a stranger when you're waiting in a queue under circumstances where you really should keep your distance as well? So that's the kind of atmosphere that I tried to put into the script. So that was the brainchild of it, and then kind of snowballed into what it is now. But.
So you wrote this post March 2020, after COVID had kind of hit globally and restrictions were being put into place. Okay, so it's fully born out of the pandemic.
I'm sure many of your guests have had works that have also been born out of the pandemic, but yeah, so it was a good kind of kept me busy, and then when restrictions eased, I was like, all right, let's film it, because everyone was as I said, just dying to get back to work as soon as we could. And the film, oh sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering how you assembled everybody to come together. If you had known folks from previous works, if you have a group that you typically work with some frequency, and I guess everybody was eager to get out and get active. So
for sure. Yeah, no, it was, I kind of had the pick of the crop really. So I was quite lucky in that sense. But no, the director, is a really great young director. His name is Laurie Waplington. And he's a graduate of the Met Film School in London. And that's how I met him as an actress on a short film that he did, Reclaimer. And then the DP, Mickey Vissers, he's Dutch, but he also worked with Laurie and was DP on the previous short film Reclaimer. And so always great if you've had a director and DP who work together well and know each other. So they kind of came as a unit. And then after that, I kind of threw the net out, talked to other producer friends, and kind of got a request for, a sound recordist mixer. And we've got a great sound recordist. Her name's Kira Westman. She worked on Ad Astra and Hateful Eight. She's from Colorado originally, but was in London. So we were lucky to have her. And then, just kind of, threw the net out to unknowns, but it all came together well. That was a really fun bit, actually. It was finding new creatives and making new relationships like that, just from cold contacts, which was great. And then the actor who plays the man, David Amordia, he's fantastic. He's phenomenal. And that was also a fresh kind of just put out casting, and he was one of the few who kind of, we whittled it down to about 3. But he really blew us away, and he was fantastic to work with.
Even from the production stills, I get a very deep sense of emotion out of each shot. You could kind of get a sense, I think, of the tone of the film just by looking at the stills on the Kickstarter, which is always a good indication that it's acted well.
An off-putting tone, right? Like it makes you uncomfortable. Good. Yes, achieved.
It's a good thing that I was off-put, I guess. In this case,
we aim to off-put.
And so you wrote it, and then you brought in another director to direct it. I wonder if there were any, what that experience was like for you to relinquish control in that area, and if there was any interplay, if you towed that line and put your foot over at all.
I probably did. We should have gotten Laurie on here. He'd be like rolling his eyes at me. But no, I mean, it is definitely an unconventional kind of setup to have maybe a writer, producer, and a separate director. But Laurie and I get along really well, and I think we worked hard to make sure that we aligned on the vision. And so we had many calls to discuss and clarify and make sure that what I had envisioned as a writer would be communicated in his work, but then him also having the freedom to direct as well. And so I guess in that sense it was an unusual setup, but I think the way that Laurie is a very collaborative director, he and Mickey as well, the DP, will kind of share ideas, and Mickey has a lot of freedom on set when he's filming as well. And so Laurie brought that same kind of collaborative spirit towards our work together. And so we sat down and I had a lot of input in the shot list. And in some ways it was cool to have, you obviously have something in your head when you're a writer, but then you have the added benefit of a different perspective from the director. But when your kind of visions align or even elevate your individual ones, then that works really well. Granted, it probably won't happen with every writer director, but in this case it worked really well.
That's awesome to hear, and probably goes a long way in telling about your relationship together collaboratively.
For sure. But I will be directing another short that's I'm in pre-production for. So I wrote that, and that will film in end of February is where we're looking. So
okay, great.
Yeah.
And
so
what other hats are you wearing for that? So writer, director, will you also be acting and producing?
I will not. That would be way too much. Way too much. No, I won't be producing this time, but I will be acting in it as well. So I mean, I think it's definitely a tricky one, direct and act. But I think I have a theater background, and so I think I do feel comfortable in kind of making rehearsal choices, or making choices in rehearsal, and kind of just or how to get the best out of your fellow actor as well in the rehearsal. And then in film, a lot of the time, depending on the director, you kind of have to direct yourself anyway. So you get less direction in film, I find, for an actor than you would get in theater. So hopefully I can bring more of that theater background into this, so we can get some good performances.
Yeah,
Myself included, hopefully.
that's good insight, and that already answers maybe part of this question. But I wonder if how you compartmentalize, or if you have any mental strategies to make sure that when you're acting, and then they call cut, and then you can switch your hat really quick, pick it up from the sideline, I don't know, and put on a new hat, so that you're, giving your best performance and not distracted by something as a director while you're acting in the film that you're directing.
No, for sure. Well, so I've already spoken to my first AD, so we're going to break protocol here, and she's going to be the one to call cut, just so that I can stay in that moment. So we'll have her at rehearsals as well, just so she knows the shape of the scene, and when, where those peaks, those emotional peaks and troughs are, so she's familiar with what should be working. And then I think in terms of, I had a little bit of an issue, I think, with the queue, with my acting, because I think I didn't give myself enough acting prep, just because I was so embedded in prepping for the production. So I think the lesson learned from that is just make sure that you start way ahead of time, and making sure that the lines backwards and forwards, all of your motivations are picked out, all of your character work, all of that relationship work. So just really prepping the hell out of it, so that when you get on set, you kind of trust that from an acting perspective you can deliver. And so then you kind of really only need to worry about making sure that when you do a playback, that the story was visually communicated effectively. And also making sure I have a really solid team around me, so I don't have to worry about, when's the catering coming, and what's this, no, this messed up, and oh, that lamp fell down, so it's just making sure I have like full trust in the team around me, who are kind of thinking 2 steps ahead, so I can just focus on delivering from a storytelling and creative perspective. So yeah, prep.
I think that's good advice. Yeah. And leading into the filming of The Queue, obviously you wrote it during COVID, and then you filmed under quarantine or lockdown restrictions. So like, how did that was a challenge, obviously, you knew going into the production of that, but I think you said that it was your first time actually producing yourself. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what was that experience like? I guess, what's the protocol like in the UK for filming during the lockdown? And what extra did that add to your plate in general that wouldn't have otherwise been there?
God, there's so many. So I mean, well, I guess at the beginning, we were kind of in the same boat as everybody else, because it was still quite early on in the shutdown, in terms of where we were at with prepping. So there wasn't at the time a whole lot of material or guidance from industry. There is now. So the British Film Commission has issued set of guidance, set of guidelines that from which you can kind of build up a COVID safety policy per production that you're doing. But so it does require the additional costs of PPE, getting tests, ensuring that that people coming to set, they're doing it safely. So either through private transport means, or if it's public, then making sure that they're, wearing all of the appropriate protective wear, and then getting a COVID health and safety supervisor on set as well. So, because, when you're in the thick of it, typically what you could do is, a camera crew could just go, oh, can you pass me that? And then someone, a runner just goes and gives it to them. But, you have to minimize who touches what. So it was like creating little department bubbles, basically. So sound could only touch sound stuff. Cam crew could only touch their kit. So it does mean that you do have to kind of stop and think. So you have your COVID safety supervisor there kind of barking like, don't touch that, and step away, and hand sanitizers and wiping equipment, props as well. That's another thing in set dressings. They have to go into like a 3-day quarantine before, they're then exposed to the crew or the cast. So all of these things which kind of add up in terms of time and money as well, that you need to be thinking about. But the entire shoot was done outside, so that was a good saving grace for us, or it just kind of at least made us all calm down a little bit since we were filming outside. But yeah, no better time to dip into producing, I guess.
Do you think that your work was like doubled, or can you quantify? Because the organization around it seems like a nightmare.
Yeah. It was a nightmare. It was. Oh, and then getting everybody to do kind of COVID safety skills courses as well. So kind of making sure that everyone did that, and then collecting all the different certificates. And I felt like a mom. I was like chasing everybody. I was like, you haven't done your skills course yet. Which for a producer, I'm a bit of a, I don't know, I don't like telling people what to do. So it was a bit naggy. Felt I was a bit naggy, but yeah, so it was, threw myself into the deep end there. But I think it's not quantifiable, also because I have nothing to compare it to. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely more work than it should have been. So
it definitely sounds like it was.
Yeah.
And was there any hesitation on your part to pull the trigger during this time? I mean, I kind of want to get into your mind a little bit more. First writing it, why did you write this at this time? And then one step further, how did you, I would have hesitated. I think most people would have hesitated and said, this is going to be too much work. There's protocols I have to follow and learn about. It's my first time as a producer. So I just wonder about, the process for you to get from an idea and then very quickly turn it around into a production that you're filming.
Yeah. So I guess, okay, I'll break it into two. So the writing, I think, was just, I needed a creative outlet, and, it was such a mental time. And, I think creatively your mind is just going a million miles a minute, and everything becomes kind of a point of inspiration, or you're trying to capture this moment and kind of put it in a time capsule. Even if not literally, just the kind of the moods that were evoked in that time. So that's why writing it, I kind of think, was just like a necessity for me at the time. And then your other question, I think it was more stupidity and naivety than anything else. And I'm just like I'm quite an impatient person. So I think for me, I was like, I have the script. It's reflective of this time. Shall we just do it? And kind of diving head first into it. So probably would have been better to kind of, take a step and pause and think, okay, should we park this for another time or whatnot? But I just thought, no, let's just be idiots and let's do it and go for it. But I think in terms of learning curve, yeah, I think it was, with all the stress and the kind of moments of like, what am I doing? It did give me so many nuggets of gold that I'll, yeah, definitely take forward in future projects that I, yeah, produce or make. And but yeah, so that's it. Basically, I'm an impatient, naive creative.
And I think probably it's an extension of you wrote it and you were processing your feelings at that time, and you wanted those feelings to come to fruition in some way, maybe. I
Yeah, I think
wonder, like
yeah.
that feeling of impatience when it's something that's like pertinent to things that are going on right now. I
Yeah,
imagine
I
that
think
maybe
so. Yeah,
motivated you.
I was probably, there was definitely an element of like, well, if it's a piece that's born out of this moment, will it have the same kind of resonance if it's made at a later date? Yeah, so I think that was definitely one element of it. Another element was just, I just wanted to get back to work. I just really wanted to work. Um, and yeah, but I do think there's truth in the fact that yeah, it needed to be filmed now because now is what we were trying to represent. So it probably would have lost a bit of its urgency or mood um, if it had been done later, for sure.
Yeah. And what were some of the key themes? And obviously, I don't want to get into spoiling the
Yeah.
film, but maybe hopefully building it up by
Mm,
exploring where your mind was at, some of maybe the ideas and concepts that you were uh,
yeah.
thinking about, perhaps struggling with, and how the queue is a way to explore those.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you get into it a little bit in the Kickstarter itself and describing the project. So I would love to explore those kind of social concepts as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I think a lot of it is also kind of a response to the current political climate, both in the UK, but also in the US, which is where I grew up. And so kind of seeing the just after the election, there's a little bit of a sigh of relief, I think, in terms of going back to where we were before, even though I don't know if we should be going back to where we were before, but at least there's a new chapter ahead of us. But it was just so demoralizing and disheartening to see the level of police brutality, and all of the movement that was going on in the States. It was wonderful to see that movement, but there was also a real moment of like, my God, it has taken so long for people to fully appreciate and understand the kind of day-to-day violence that's inflicted, and also kind of admonishing myself as well in terms of, well, did I educate myself as much as I could have? Did I really empathize with marginalized groups and demographics as much as I maybe could have? So kind of um, feeling guilty around that and my complicity, and not having engaged with it and to the degree that I should have, and then also just the political climate as well. It just seems that we're further entrenching ourselves in our separate camps. Can we trust, can you trust somebody who has a differing opinion to you? Can you trust somebody who's on from the different side of the tracks, opposite side of the country, different political affiliations? And then of course, with the COVID response and the systemic injustice that's been going on and violence that's been going on for so long, can you trust your institutions? Can you trust the systems and the structure? And so what happens on an individual level between just two strangers if you don't have faith in the capacity for your society to protect and treat you with respect, and So what impact does that then have on your interaction with another person? You know, that lack of faith, does that translate into you being maybe dismissive or violent against your fellow citizen, you know, or just even another human being? So I think those were the ideas that were percolating in a really volatile time, and the queue basically explores in a dystopian world. You know, if we take that the systems that are meant to separate and divide, and keep your head down and keep you oppressed. You know, if we take that to its extreme, which is the world that's portrayed in the queue, then yeah, then where are we as individuals, and what are our interactions like then, if we take that divided society and mistrust and in systems to its extreme. So that was kind of all of the ideas that were percolating. I hope we managed to pull it off.
Yeah, and I mean, I certainly had similar percolations in my own mind, and um, it's been a difficult time for everyone, I think, and it's difficult no matter where you are, who you are, to kind of wrap your mind around
Mm,
society at this point. And when I when I read your description, one of the words that kind of jumped out at
mm,
me was this question of civility. I think that was a word you used in the description on Kickstarter, and
yeah.
for me, it resonated because it's a question of, and maybe I read between the lines. You could correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm,
but I got the sense that your film explores the idea of, do we rely on government and the state and its existence as a basis and an insurance that
mm,
we will be civil to each other, or is that civility something that exists outside of a structure and a system that we know as, you know, governance? You know, can
mm,
we be civil to each other without police presence there? Can we rely on one another if we are from different sides of the track, just based on tracks, just based on the fact that we're both human and
mm.
have a communal sense of survival, that maybe we don't agree on these points, but push comes to shove, maybe we could cooperate to strive together.
Yeah.
And I got the sense, so you could tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I got the sense that that is in part what your film is about.
Yeah, no, I think that's really that's an astute reading. Yeah, I mean it's kind of it's the classic like Hobbes Locke thoughts, you know, relinquishing some of your own individual freedoms in order to have the protections of society and you know functioning system, and you have that to rely on. And so and then from that, you know, you have your social contract of well, I'm not going to go and I could go and punch a man in the face, but I'm not going to do that because, you know, that's not beneficial for the collective, you know, for the society that I'm living in. Um, so I think if the systems and the governance structure, if they fail, or if people perceive that they are um, a failure, and that maybe they favor one demographic over another, or they don't have your best interests at heart, I do think that has the potential to erode the civility on an interpersonal level,
Mm,
and between strangers, because you then just kind of end up in an anarchic system.
right,
um,
right.
yeah, where if people don't see that, well, if the rules aren't helping me, you know, if me not going and punching a man in the face isn't actually going to help me, because I don't believe in the system that I'm buying into, that dictates I don't go punching people in the face, then why should I? So it's that kind of collapse of civility through just a real lack of faith in the system that you're expected to buy into in a kind of social contract way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did I answer your question? Like I went
Yeah,
off.
yeah. And sometimes I don't really pose questions. I just throw ideas out. So
No, it's good.
your feedback is definitely on point. And I would say, yeah, I mean, I was quite an optimistic college student, and I studied peace studies and conflict resolution and things of that nature. And the same questions that excited me then excite me, but also trouble me now. And I think it's the age-old dilemma of, as you get older, you become more pessimistic, maybe.
I know, you too. Yeah.
And I'm struggling with that, but also trying to think as deeply about it as I did then, again now, and not just allow pessimism to take over, but rather consider in a deep way. And for context, I'm originally from New York, very liberal, urban metropolis area, and now I live in North Carolina, which is went towards Trump in the last election.
Yeah.
And so in my daily interactions, I kind of have this consciousness of, well, I'm quite a liberal person and I'm interacting with a more conservative person, and look at us, we get along when that's not part of the equation.
Yeah.
And our daily interactions. So it's something I'm conscious of on a daily basis, this polarization, but also the fact that despite polarization, we could continue to be civil to each other, even when the governing structures that surround us seem to be failing in a variety of ways. So, I mean, there's other examples that may lean in the opposite direction, and we would be less civil to each other because of circumstances. But yeah, it's something that I think about quite often.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you raise a really good point. And although the queue, I mean, I wouldn't say it's not like, rainbows and bunnies at the end, but I think it does pose the question that, could there these two people who kind of come from opposite ends of the city, your example of talking to, interacting with a conservative, and you as a liberal coming from New York, and how, oh look, despite the high level narrative that we all hate each other and we can't converse and we can't talk, look at us doing that, so kind of slowly chipping away at the polarization just through I guess counterfactuals, right? Like, oh, look at us, here we are and we're engaging. So I think the relationship of the two people, the tragic bit of it is there are moments in which they do have a coming up together, or they do have a moment of consensus or kind of a profound connection, even though their structure tells them they should be highly distrustful of each other. And then, but whether or not they're able to truly overcome that top-down narrative is, what you'll see when it comes out. But I think, it definitely does tackle, or at least tries to tackle that phenomenon, or not phenomenon, but that that more idealistic, perhaps, take, which is that can we chip away at the polarization by recognizing that, oh, here's another human being. We have different political affiliations. We come from different backgrounds, but trying to come to a point of understanding. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that individuals, and you see with grassroots movements as well. I think sometimes it does come down to the individual or collective group of individual to actually topple the more negative, the more toxic structural elements of your society that are coming kind of from top down rather than your day-to-day experience. So it is important that we, yeah, for sure, find that optimism.
That begs the question for me too. You're saying the way that we're categorizing people is kind of top down. It's a narrative that we're told and buy into, and a lot of times that has there's reasons for it, and there is benefit to categorizing things in society. But at the end of the day, why, when I interact with somebody, now that I'm down living in the South, why would I automatically think about it from that level of categorization? Why would I automatically default to political affiliation or social end of the spectrum, conservative, liberal? So there's a lot of interesting questions that just reading the synopsis of your short film got me excited and resonated with me, as I'm sure it will resonate with many other people who interact with the material.
Yeah,
and that's just, I didn't even see any live video clips of the film. Just conceptually, what you are working with seemed very appealing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do try and put that into my work as much as possible. Just yes, social issues or questions that kind of are sitting in my head, that I think should be discussed, and also for people to engage with them on a enjoyable, entertaining format as well, I think is not saying that like theater and film will save the world, but I think it is a really good avenue for people to engage with kind of difficult, uncomfortable topics, because you sit down and you want to be entertained and you want to see a story, and hopefully it can kind of resonate or raise questions for you, and then that has a domino effect when you go back out and interact with the real world.
Yeah, and I think film is a beautiful medium because it can illustrate some of the abstractions and layered issues that we deal with in daily life without explicitly describing them, because oftentimes they are very difficult to describe.
It's like a picture is 1,000 words, and then a moving picture is like, I don't know, 1,000,000 words or something.
Right. Yeah, exponential after that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I don't know if you want to talk at all more about the queue. I do have a couple more questions in the
shoot.
15-20 minutes we have.
Go for it.
And if you don't mind, I'm curious to know more about you. You indicated that you were originally from the US and now you're in the UK. So I would love to hear more about your personal history as a creative and filmmaker.
I don't know. It's probably a little bit more boring than what we've been discussing, but I'm born in San Francisco, and then moved to Portland, Oregon when I was a kid, and then spent some time there and also in Japan growing up, because my mom is she's half Japanese and grew up in Tokyo, so we still had family there, and so went back and forth and visited quite a lot. And then my first foray into acting was at a children's theatre in Portland that I got stuck in. My mom put me in a camp because I was like 5 and going off the walls, and she was like, okay, putting you in a camp. And so it was a theatre camp, summer theatre camp, and then I got the bug, and then that was it for me, really. So I was like 5, 6, I think. And then moved to the UK 10 years ago. Originally went to Scotland for uni. So I went to St. Andrews, which is like a tiny, tiny little coastal town in Scotland. It's like 3 streets and then a university is what's up there. and golf courses. And so, yeah, so I haven't, just been living in the UK ever since. And from St Andrews, I moved to London and studied at the Central School of Speech and Drama. So I did a kind of 1 year conservatoire training there, and then have just been, writing and acting and making stuff since then. That's been me. Yeah.
Is it normal for a school to be named speech and acting? I wonder what the speech side of that.
Oh, that's a good point. I think actually you're right. I think historically there was, because I know I have a friend whose mom worked there like ages and ages and ages ago, and I think she trained there for speech, like therapy and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, don't quote me on that. That's just kind of vaguely remembering what he told me. And then the rest is conjecture. But yeah, Central School of Speech and Drama. Yeah, it's been around for ages as well. So it's it's an old school.
It could be some sort of antiquated name
Yeah, it could
discipline
be.
that was formerly taught there, or
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know. They had a really great farmers market every Wednesday, which was nice. And the best coffee, like the best. There was a man who had a coffee stand outside, and it's just the best coffee you'll ever drink. It's amazing.
are you a light roast or a dark roast person?
Dark roast. I like it
Okay.
like syrupy tar. That's kind of my jam. But yeah, but I actually found the coffee man who, because I hadn't seen him since I left that school, and then I was at a market nearby my house and I saw him and I was like, oh, you don't remember me, but I used
I
to come
remember
every
you.
day. And he was like, I remember you, you a fucking fiend. Oh, sorry, I don't know if we allowed to say that.
It's
But
okay.
but yeah, so that was fun to see him. It's been like 5 years, and he gave me free coffee, which is very
Wow, so he
nice.
really
Yeah.
did remember you.
I
Not
mean,
only did
like,
he
yeah.
remember you, he also liked you.
Yeah, well, there you go. I
He
did
knows
fund
that.
his stand for like an entire year. But yeah, what
I
else?
have a similar story with a bread man that was at one
Oh
farmer's
yeah.
market. And then I moved and I came back, like we're talking like 5 years later, and I went
Mhm.
to a different farmer's market and he was there and he remembered me. But he did
See?
not give me a free croissant.
Oh no. Rude. Terrible.
Sorry, I
Um,
think I cut you off with
no, not at all. Not at all.
my bread
Is that
story.
what you would get though? You would have a croissant, or would you get? Did they used to have
And
like loaves of bread as well?
loaves, yeah, I'd get a loaf of cranberry walnut, which is one of
Oh,
my go-tos.
interesting. I'm an olive bread lady myself. That's
That's,
probably
yeah.
my favorite.
If I was
Yeah.
gonna do savory and sweet, I would get one of each actually,
Oh
cranberry
yeah.
walnut and olive. So
And the olives, yeah. What kind of spread would you put on the cranberry walnut though? Because that's kind of tricky to know
butter, I would
spreads with.
toast it, or
Just
sometimes
toasted
I
butter.
just like eating bread as bread is,
Yeah, I
plain
love
and
bread and
simple.
butter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do Marmite? Have you had Marmite?
No.
It's so good.
Is Can
It's
you
like
describe it for me?
it's really, really salty spread. I think it's from yeast. And it kind of looks like tar.
Is it
And you
like that Australian one? Is that
Yeah, it's
Vegemite?
like
Is it
Vegemite. Yeah,
okay?
I mean, yeah, it's like Vegemite. Apparently they taste slightly different, or like Aussies will get a little like completely different, and Brits will be like they're completely different, but they're probably just the same thing.
Yeah, probably
Um,
the same process and
yeah,
everything.
but it's similar. Like the only thing I could think of is like if you condensed soy sauce and turned it into a spread, that's kind of what it tastes like.
Oh,
Very salty.
I might be down for that on a special day of the week. Not every day, maybe once a month or
Every day.
once a week or
Yeah.
so.
You only need to put like a tiny little bit on, but I like lather it. I like eat it with a spoon. But yeah, you just
Is it
never do
an acquired taste, or
that.
did you really enjoy that right when you came over from the States?
I really liked it. Yeah, because it was the closest thing I could find to like that reminded me of Japanese food. So I was like, oh, this is great. And then, yeah, so I didn't need to acquire it. But I think for others, yeah, you might have to, unless you really like salty food, then I think, yeah, you might have to
Yeah.
acquire a
And
toaster.
and let's use that to segue into Japan. So I lived in Japan 2 years
No
myself.
way.
And I saw when I was looking on the internet and checking your bio and stuff that that was one of your skills as an actress. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to know more about where you have been, how much time you have spent there, if you still go back with any frequency.
Yeah. So I lived in Tokyo for 2 years when I was 11 to 12. And I went to the ASIJ, which is the American school in Japan. So I went there. And it's like an hour-long bus ride out from central Tokyo to this school. It's like in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, so that was great. And then before that, my grandma and grandpa lived in Tokyo as well. So we would go at least once a year to see them. I think from when I was a kid up to when my grand passed away, which is last April is when she passed away. But yeah, so from yeah, always went every year to see her. And then, but I'm a bit of like a, it's bad. I haven't traveled as much like outside of the cities as
Tokyo, yeah.
yeah, Tokyo and but yeah, I've been to Kyoto and Osaka and like Hokkaido, and Izu Peninsula is really really pretty as well. Love it. But yeah, I am definitely a bit of that metropolitan
Yeah,
elite prick.
that's how I
Yeah.
was in the US, and when I was living
Mm.
there, I traveled more in Japan than I have in the US for sure.
So
By
what were you
like
doing there for 2 years?
1 year I did a student exchange, so
Cool.
just during university.
Hmm.
And then 1 year I taught English in a pretty isolated rural area. And then
Yeah.
I've worked with Japanese companies pretty consistently
Really?
in the US, and yeah, and
Oh, wow. Do you speak
used.
Japanese in the
I do, yeah. I'm starting to get pretty rusty
yeah.
when you don't use it. But I
Yeah.
was using it at a previous job on a daily basis,
Oh
which was
wow.
nice because it, at that point my skills were improving.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you enjoy Japanese cinema at all?
I do. I do.
Do you have
Yeah.
any favorite directors
Oh God, what's his
or
name?
movies?
You've caught me off guard. The Manbiki Kazoku, the
Oh,
shoplifter or shoplifters.
yeah.
What's his, oh
No,
God,
I'm
he's
gonna.
like such a famous director. This is so bad.
Yeah, and I just watched another one of his
It is,
films.
right? I know. God, his
Is
films are
it
always,
Koreeda?
oh, should I look it up? Because this
We
is
could look
bad
it up.
that we
Yeah,
don't know. Um,
I think it's Koreeda. And I'll yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Koreeda
Koreeda.
Hirokazu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We got there. Oh God, so bad.
I
Um,
remembered, but I would say that I tout Japanese cinema as one of my like favorite things in the world, and one of my main hobbies, like go
mm.
to, is to just sit
Oh,
down and
so
watch it.
you'll do like the old school Kurosawa and all. Yeah, I mean those are just
Yeah, my favorite is Itami Juzo, who he's most famous for Tampopo. Um,
oh yeah,
but he has 10 other movies and I recommend all of them highly
okay,
in his filmography. Um,
okay.
but yeah, despite it being one of my favorite things in the world, I'm
Mm.
terrible with director names and actor names. I'm more
Yeah,
of a face person.
yeah. You're like, oh him, and he was in that one. Yeah, no, I'm the same. It's really embarrassing actually. Should get better at it. But yeah, are you into the kind of Studio Ghibli stuff as well then?
Yeah, I enjoy that. When I was growing up in New York, actually, and it's crazy that the situation has changed so dramatically, but when Mononoke Hime came out,
Hmm.
they had like one screening in New York, and the distribution of information on the internet then wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
And we couldn't find the theater, and we're not sure if it even actually ended up existing, and we're not even sure if it was playing there, but we were in the city like hunting around for this movie to watch it.
Oh, wow. Do you know
When
where it was actually shown in the end? Which
No, we didn't figure
no.
it out. But
Oh.
there's an annual Japanese film festival at the Japan
Mm.
Society in New York, which is pretty good. And the earliest iterations of that festival, I think, was where I got my feet wet.
Okay.
Starting to dip my toe into Japanese cinema in the
Yeah.
early 2000s, I guess, or late 90s even.
Oh, okay, cool. No, I mean
Yeah.
it is, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's good practice as well, just to keep up the language. You just kind of, yeah, surround yourself with it. And it's really good
And try to
practice.
not read subtitles.
I know. Yeah, because especially like the older ones, I really, really struggle when it gets into like, yeah, and then like Kegel and Hene form. I can't understand that.
Yeah,
It's too formal.
I can't keep up either. But
Yeah.
anybody who's listening who's trying to learn a language and or um, improve or remember a language, when I watch Japanese films, if I have enough energy, I'll
Mm-hmm.
actually move my mouth, like listen to something, hear it, and then move my mouth, because the mouth movement is pretty different between the languages. And
Yeah, that's true. It does. If you haven't done it in a while, it kind of feels a bit like
like
this is
marbles in your
unnatural. Yeah,
mouth.
marbles. Yeah. You like make silly mistakes and stuff. Oh no, completely. Yeah. Have you watched Terrace House?
I don't know if I'm embarrassed, but I'll say that I love
Okay.
it.
I tried to
Yeah.
share. It's so good. I tried to show it to my friend and they were like, I don't get it. Nothing
Yeah.
happens. And I was like, but it's everything happens and nothing happens.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It's very Japanese for
it's
sure.
yeah. It always makes me hungry as well, because all of the stuff they cook when they go out to restaurants. I'm just
And
but
going to
yeah.
the supermarket and picking up like natto. Luckily, I have
Yeah.
a Korean grocery store that's not too far,
Oh,
and they have
nice.
most everything I would want in terms
Yeah.
of
You like
Japanese. And
natto? Will you eat it?
yeah, occasionally I'll like crave
Oh,
it. I think if my body wants those vitamins that only it contains,
it can,
yeah, I'll have
yeah.
a craving.
I can't do the stringy. I
The
just can't do
stringy.
it. Yeah, the stringy, I don't like it.
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste, and one I didn't acquire quickly.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, so.
actually on a when I was in university there, I
Mm,
was teaching at an English cafe. So it's basically people come in and they pay for a drink, and there's a native English speaker, who is me,
no.
who will
Okay.
interact with them and speak English. And I was
Yeah.
in rural, not too rural, like an hour outside of Hiroshima city. So
Okay. Yeah.
a more rural city than Tokyo, and then an hour outside of that becomes pretty rural pretty quick.
Mm, mm.
Um, but the owner of that somehow got inquiry from a local TV station, and basically these gag comedians came in and interacted with me. And at that time, my Japanese was abysmal, so I really didn't know what was going on.
Oh no, you were the fool.
I was the fool. It was okay. I was willing. And the premise was that I couldn't eat natto. So if they mixed it with things I could eat, maybe I would develop and acquire a taste. And I was really the fool, like wearing the jester's hat. But
Wow.
the joke was on them at the end, because at the end of
You were
that
just
project, I had a taste for natto.
That's amazing. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah. Japanese comedy, I don't quite get. Like, the stand-up and comedy routines. I'm not. It kind
Yeah.
of goes one over my head.
Right. Yeah. I could get the subtleties of interaction and relationships pretty well, which I think is
Yeah.
what is fun and interesting about Terrace House. It kind of, for me,
Yeah.
gives me the fix of like missing Japan quite a bit at times.
Yeah.
And I'll watch
Yeah.
Terrace House and I'll be like, okay, I was in
All right, I
Japan for an
got
hour.
yeah. No, literally, because it is so Japanese. It is just so Japanese. But yeah, I know. They
Yeah,
brought in more foreigners though in the latest season.
I know. Oh, I'm fully caught up.
You should have auditioned, man. You should have.
I know. I might be too old for them now.
Yeah.
Like bringing
One
in
of you, Sam.
18-year-old people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So what is your future plans? You mentioned that you're not to transition to and from
No, no, it's
so
good.
quickly
Yeah, because
because
I'll
I
actually
love.
I'll have to pop off pretty soon. So,
Yeah, so
but yeah.
before we do wrap up, and do you have to go right now? Should I let you
No, no, no,
go?
it's okay. I can, yeah, we
You have
can
a couple. Okay,
wrap up
cool.
now.
Before I do let you go, I would love to hear about the current short that you indicated you're working on. And
Yeah.
I think I may remember, if I remember correctly, that you were also working on a feature length. Reading that
Yeah.
somewhere.
Reading that somewhere. Yeah, I am. I am. Oh,
So
I
if you
gotta
could
be
talk,
careful what I put out on the internet.
I
Um,
guess I'm a pretty astute host
yeah, you've done
that
your
I
due
really
diligence.
pull out whatever I can from what information is
Yeah.
afforded to me.
No, no,
Uh,
no. Yeah, happy to talk about both. So the short that I'm in pre-production for is River Take Me, and it is a relationship drama. And it's the kind of charts the disintegration of a relationship over the course of a single day. So it's between a relationship of two women, Liv and Amelia, who are the central characters. And the film is basically kind of a portrait of how and why a relationship fails. Is it inevitable? Is it a failure of compatibility? What are the different ways in which we have the tendency to hurt the ones that are closest to us and be meanest to the ones who are closest to us, and why is it that we put our partner on impossibly high expectations or pedestals, that you wouldn't do that for a friend, but somehow you kind of elevate your partner to this level. So it's these two women who are just completely polar opposites, but they kind of no longer know how to communicate or express their love towards each other. And so over the course of a single day, you kind of see how the the pokes and the prods and the microaggressions and the moments where we could have reconciled, but then we go away. So all of those missed opportunities to salvage a relationship, or conversely, was it just meant to end or fail? So that's it's different to The Queue in that it's a lot more intimate, I would say, and it's a lot more restrained and kind of we're stripping it back and pulling it back. But I think everyone will empathize with it, and having spent a lot of time with maybe your significant other, or just living under close proximity with another person, and how that can kind of, you can all be a little bit testy. So that's yeah, hopefully people will resonate with that and kind of then see, oh, maybe I was being a bit unreasonable there, or oh, I do this microaggression and I don't even realize that. So I think it should be a good film to hold up the mirror into the kind of unknowing mistakes that we make in our relationship and to our loved ones. So that's River Take Me. And then the feature that I'm developing is completely different. It's set in World War I for the first half, and then we go back to Australia, and we go to the outback in the second half. And it's following four characters from their experience on the opposite ends of the First World War, and they all come back together as fellow settlers, farmers. But the real kick is that even though it's a World War movie and it's set in Australian outback, all of the central characters are women or people of color. So that's the feature that I'm working on. It's a lot of research.
I was just going to say, yeah, you took the words out of my mouth.
It is like, yeah, I think I will have the equivalent of like a master's thesis of material once I'm done researching it. But yeah, that's a long-term goal and project.
And no pressure on you, but do you have a timeline for finalizing the script for that one?
Um, I would like to, by the end of 2021,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
have
that's
a
pretty ambitious for such
pretty
a
credible first draft. Yeah, I
research
mean,
heavy.
I know. Well, it's been an idea that's been percolating for a while. So I've had and collected bits and bobs. But I have the structure like fully fleshed out now. So it's just making sure that I bring it to life with just those little tidbits of history that'll really make it zing and kind of transport you really back to that time. So that's what I'm doing now. Again, very ambitious, naive, or impatient, or very stupid,
Or
maybe,
both.
or all of the above, all of the above.
Well, regardless, my interest is definitely piqued on both accounts, and I haven't even seen your work, but just by virtue of your approach to what you do, I feel and understand the level of layers and artistry that you bring to
Oh,
it, and I'm excited to check some of your work out in the near future.
yeah, no,
And for
definitely.
anybody listening, how can they keep track of you as you continue
Um,
to
yeah,
release
they
your creative stuff?
as my creative babies into the world. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, which is EdiePie23. Terrible Instagram name. I don't know what I was doing when I made that, but you can follow me there. Or you can do ediedeffebach.com. It's the website with my work, including the queue and River Take Me, and a bit of the feature as well is on there. So yeah, that's where they can find me.
And for the queue specifically, when that's released early next year, where do you think people will have to go to a film festival first, or is there a digital distribution
Yeah, I mean,
plan?
yeah, indeed. So we're going to submit it to festival circuits, but I think after that, if we will have the streaming release, hopefully, just so we can get people who won't be able to go to a festival can see it, and then also will hopefully be on the festival's kind of streaming platforms as well. So I think that's kind of the nature of the festivals these days, but it's good because it means that you have a wider audience. So yeah, that's where they can see it. But I will definitely keep you posted.
Yeah, very good. Well, let me let you go. And again, thank you so much for joining me. It was really wonderful speaking with you today, Edie.
Yeah, likewise. Kotira koso.
Hello, my fellow randoms, and welcome to the post-show debriefing, the random ramblings of your host. That's me, Kev Duffy, and I basically want to highlight my key takeaways and also any areas where I think I might be able to improve the podcast. As always, I appreciate your feedback too, and you can holler at us anytime at What's Your Random on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Most active on Instagram, I would say, but we look forward to hearing from you there. My key takeaways from this episode are it was interesting. I think this is the first time I jumped, head first into a creative work that was inspired directly by contemporary events. We are currently in December 2020, going on into almost or getting close to a year of lockdown since the COVID pandemic has shaken the world. And it was really interesting that Edie wrote this, after the pandemic became real. and started to affect our daily lives, and then filmed it under restrictions for COVID and under guidelines that were impacted by the current pandemic crisis. It's also interesting and amazing that she wrote and produced a film under the current circumstances, and that shaped the narrative as well. So I like to think of creativity as a way to process some of the challenging questions that we are facing. That's one outlet for creativity, at least. And it was interesting to dive into that directly and some of the themes that Edie explores in The Queue. And I'm really excited to check it out. As far for my performance, again, it was a great conversation. The first half of the conversation, I think, was primarily heavy and, about her experience, and then about the themes and the current state of society in the world. And then we got into lighter issues like Terrace House and learning a little bit more about Edie the person and her background. So I thought that was great. Maybe the tone of the conversation shifted too dramatically at some point, but I don't know that that's at all a problem. But it's something that I was conscious of, and I like to be conscious of that tone and maintaining a balance or trying to not shift gears too quickly. In this case, maybe I did. Maybe it ended up working out. But something I'm conscious of, and I think the more conscious I am of that, and the more that I'm able to get the conversation flowing and making my guests feel comfortable, the better the podcast will be. So I try to be conscious of all of these factors. How about you, my fellow random? What did you think? What are you working on? Holler at us at What's Your Random on all of your social medias, or at least the ones that we are present on. And until next time, enjoy the random.